This video is one of 5 quick reviews of the feature films from Series 1 of the Final Girl board game, which are designed to supplement our main review of the game. We hope these will collectively form a useful guide of the settings and villains available in the series, whether you are deciding where to start your experience of Final Girl or looking to take on a new challenge. You will require a copy of the core game in order to play this or any other feature film. For the sake of brevity, unless otherwise stated, the views I expressed in our main review remain relevant for the feature films and won't necessarily be repeated in this video. Lastly, please note that this video inevitably spoils some aspects of the feature film, otherwise there's not much to talk about. We have restricted discussion of possible tactics to help you defeat this feature film to its own section, so you can skip this if you don't want any help figuring out this puzzle for yourself. However, I will comment on the overall features of the scenario throughout the video. The other videos in the series will be linked in the description below as they are published. Thanks for watching. Like all the feature films, Haunting of Creech Manor is divided into 2 sections. Those elements that are linked to the setting, such as the setup, event, tokens and item cards, and those components that are related to the killer. This is so that you can easily switch the killer or setting with others in the range, and the components are marked with symbols, allowing you to track them back to the setting or the killer at the end of your game. These components are enclosed within the map board for Creech Manor and the Poltergeist killer board. You also get 2 final girls, Selena and Alice in this case, which again can be used in any setting. For the purpose of this review, we're going to look at all of these components as a single cohesive expansion, without switching in other options from the wider Final Girl range, as there are so many potential combinations at this stage that it would make for a very long video. No plastic miniatures are included in the feature film, though these are available separately. The Poltergeist is one of the most different villains in this series of Final Girl, completely changing the win condition and style of your game. As a ghost, the Poltergeist cannot sustain damage and has no hit points. Instead of killing the Poltergeist, your objective is to find and rescue Caroline, a little girl who is hiding inside the mansion. Caroline and her stuffed toy Mr. Floppy are randomly added to the item decks for the 3 search locations on your map, in place of 2 of the normal items. Your ostensibly simple task is to undertake search actions at these locations until you find Caroline and then escort her to an exit space, no violence required. But whilst the Poltergeist cannot be directly affected by damage, she is more than capable of dishing it out. 5 of her tarot cards feature some way in which, even without being in the same location, she can inflict harm on your final girl or the victims in the manor. She is likewise capable of significant movement, having 4 tarot cards that enable her to teleport from one area of the manor to her intended target. Once you've found Caroline, there is a chance that she will be frightened by the Poltergeist, causing her to be shuffled back into the nearest item deck, and further delaying your escape. But perhaps most terrifying of all is the number of the Poltergeist tarot cards that are discarded automatically depending on whether or not Caroline is with you at the time, potentially causing you to speed through the tarot deck and activate the Poltergeist finale card long before you've had a chance to find Caroline. After just 2 victim kills, which will take her precisely no time at all, she will activate her random dark power, most of which, like her minor dark powers, are focused on slowing your final girl down, or generally making it more difficult for her to do what she needs to do to find Caroline and escape. Let me dispel any delusions you may have had about getting an easy win in a game against a killer you don't need to fight in close combat. The Poltergeist is a capable villain, and the speed with which she can demolish your plans has to be seen to be believed. Like the Poltergeist, Creech Manor is a very different map to the others in Series 1, trading the usual top-down view for a vertical map of the escalating floors within the house. This provides some unique challenges, as the exit spaces are all at ground floor level. Whilst it is possible to descend swiftly from the window spaces, these spaces are risky due to some potentially nasty events, and they provide only single directional travel, with the exception of the ladder space, which can become broken in the course of a game. The top 2 floors of the manor can only be accessed via a single stairwell, and once there you will require significant movement to make your way back down. This is probably the reason 2 of the 3 possible search locations are here. But it's not just the topography of Creech Manor that makes it a challenging map. Creech Manor has as much personality as the Poltergeist herself, and it seems the old building is none too pleased at suddenly being inhabited by all these victims. The majority of terror cards contributed by the manor will either disrupt your attempt to save the victims or outright kill them itself. The events deck is similarly victim focused, and with 3 of the possible terror cards from Creech Manor leading to an event draw, you are more likely to see these events manifest. The setup provides some variety as to the starting locations of both Final Girl and Killer, but it is no surprise that all 5 setups place victims in the rightmost window spaces where they are vulnerable to the possible consequences of terror and event cards, and 4 of the 5 place significant numbers of victims in the attic at the top of the house where they are most difficult to reach, the 5th instead placing the Final Girl in the attic with the killer located close by. The item deck provides some level of mitigation, highlights including the padlock, which provides the means to restrict the killer's movement. Presumably it's an enchanted padlock that affects ghosts. Look, I didn't design this thing, okay? And the more thematic crucifix, which will allow you to cancel the effect of a terror card. However, if you are playing against the Poltergeist, your focus will clearly be on locating and extracting Caroline, and possibly Mr. Floppy, which may mean you turn away from items that would be auto keeps in any other game. All of this means that Creech Manor will be an adversary from the very start of the game. It is not a question of whether your luck will run out, so much as when. Selena is probably as close as you could get to a Final Girl tailor-made for this particular feature film. With only 4 victims to activate her ultimate ability, there's a higher chance that sufficient victims will be alive to get you to that point, whilst the ability to reduce horror by 2 spaces and take a search card for free greatly aids your overall objectives. Once her ultimate ability is active, Selena will gain an extra 2 dice when resolving a search action, making it far more likely she will stumble across Caroline and be able to extract her. 6 health is far from shabby as well, albeit her card gives her no immediate access to healing, allowing Selena to tank some hits if she needs to. All in all, Selena is built to get into the mansion, find Caroline and get out as quickly as possible, and in a feature film where all hope can be lost within the space of a few turns, she is ideal. While search actions will not necessarily be as critical against other killers in other locations, she certainly has enough utility to be a consideration for other feature films. Alice's disadvantages are perhaps most evident in the way that she is different to Selena. With only 4 health, she is one of the most fragile Final Girls in the game, and while saving victims gives her access to additional health and additional movement, in my opinion neither of these benefits make up for the fact that you will need to save 6 out of the 10 victims on the board before you can activate her ultimate ability. Once you do, you have access to the theoretically versatile power to select a single named action card and roll 5 dice whenever you use that card, regardless of the horror level for the remainder of the game. This sounds great in principle, but in this feature film specifically I find it hard to believe that anyone would choose anything other than search, and if you play Selena and manage horror carefully, you could be rolling 5 dice for search anyway, just far earlier in the game. Outside of an encounter with the Poltergeist, however, all bets are off. The ability to tweak Alice's abilities to suit precisely what you need in a given scenario makes her theoretically capable of taking on any adversary. I just think it's a little bit of a shame that she appears in the one feature film where the choice of card is less meaningful and alongside another Final Girl who just seems better suited for the task ahead. I don't want to spoil the experience of Final Girl. After all, it is at its core a puzzle to be solved, and nothing is worse than being given the answer to a puzzle. If you want to avoid any help defeating the Poltergeist, this is your last chance to skip to the next chapter. That said, if you're still here, this section isn't intended to replace your own skill and decision making, just give you my thoughts on one way that you might bust this ghost. Probably more so than any other opponent, I feel the Poltergeist requires a little bit of luck to defeat, especially if you're facing her in Creech Manor. The speed and randomness with which House and Ghost will work together to reach a critical mass of negative effects that render your escape impossible means that sometimes you defeating the Poltergeist just won't be on the cards. However, careful study of the Poltergeist board reveals an opportunity to increase the odds. Although fast, the Poltergeist only deals a single hit point of damage per attack in the early stages of the game, and will target these attacks against the nearest target out of you and the other victims in the house. Whilst the victims cannot defend against this attack, the Final Girl can use guard or retaliate to avoid this damage, and with 2 or 3 dice you have very good odds of negating the attack consistently. One strategy therefore is to use your Final Girl as bait. Complete some early crowd control, perhaps activating your ultimate ability, and then position yourself in such a way that you will consistently be the poltergeist target, ensuring that you manage the planning phase so that you always have a guard card in hand. Every once in a while you'll fumble a guard action, or the terror card will result in you taking 2 attacks in a turn, but as long as you can keep the poltergeist from increasing her bloodlust, this will be damage your final girl can easily handle and heal. This tactic takes a little practice to pull off effectively, requiring you to carefully plan each move. Additionally, whilst this will buy you some time and keep the poltergeist damage output low, once the terror deck has been exhausted, the poltergeist is still very capable of defeating your final girl, no matter how many souls she has managed to consume. Like most killers, this approach also relies on you managing the horror level carefully, as you will need to ensure consistent dice performance on guard actions and search actions in order to win the game. As a showcase for how flexible the core rules of Final Girl are to accommodate different stories and playstyles, the haunting of Creech Manor really hits the mark, and I found the alternative win condition that the poltergeist provides a very welcome one. No matter how many times I say the word self-defense while playing Final Girl, I still cannot shake the small amount of discomfort I feel being forced to dispatch the villain in order to win the game. In most feature films, the Final Girl must meticulously plan attacks against her enemy and pummel him or her to death. She must become the killer in order to defeat the killer, and often the most effective strategy is the one that means you strike first. At which point, all but the most self-absorbed player could be forgiven for asking, "Laurie, are we the bad guys?" But against the poltergeist, you get to be an untainted hero, rushing into the manor to save a little girl, and sometimes inexplicably her cuddly toy, before her essence is absorbed by a malignant spectre. Your entire presence on the board is a rescue mission, and it completely changes how you play and the choices you make during the game. Instead of beefing yourself up for a final confrontation, the game becomes one of speed and efficiency of action. It's amazing how different a game it feels to the other feature films in the series as a result. But if you're a beginner at Final Girl and that's a narrative that appeals to you, I'm sorry to say that I can't recommend Creech Manor, not to first-time players. More than any other feature film I've played, The Haunting of Creech Manor will sucker punch you. Consider, for example, that there is a 20% chance your starting event will be one of the 2 that could easily kill 3 victims before your first turn has even started, and this is far from the only method the feature film has to put you on the back foot. Even against Inkanyamba, widely regarded as one of the most difficult killers in Series 1 to defeat, I always felt like I was in the game. Maybe I made a suboptimal choice, maybe my dice turned against me at a critical moment, but I always felt I had agency and that it was worthwhile to play. In many games of The Haunting of Creech Manor, it will be apparent by the end of the second turn that there is next to no chance of winning the game, all because of a random sequence of events that you had very little power to prevent, even if you'd known what was coming. And when the converse occurs, when you get let off lightly by the manor or find Caroline on your first search, dragging her out of the manor before the poltergeist can react, that doesn't feel satisfying either. Persist with this feature film, and you start to know what to expect and your success rate will improve. There is, underneath it all, an extremely satisfying feature film here. But I've seen firsthand how this feature film in particular can leave newcomers so deep in the dust that they won't come back for a second try, much less the persistent attempts required to conquer the manor. Narratively, this is probably my favourite of the Series 1 feature films, but in terms of gameplay, it is easily the most infuriating. I hope this video has helped you decide whether Haunting of Creech Manor is a feature film you want to add to your Final Girl collection. As always, let us know in the comments if you agree with my conclusions or have had a different experience of this film. Reviews of the other feature films in the series are coming soon or are already linked in the description below, but rather than being haunted by the fear of missing one of our Final Girl videos, why not consider subscribing? Mr. Floppy says we'll return very soon, but until we do, remember to work hard, play better, and take care out there.